This is Brian, ScreenFiles.com in review. What I'm looking at today is 2023's Chosen One, directed by Everaldo Gout. The Chosen One is based upon an image comic from Mark Miller and Peter Gross called American Jesus. Though in the case of The Chosen One, the story is moved from the United States to Mexico. The story revolves around a young man named Jody Christensen. And I should mention that his last name, Christensen, is really on the nose, especially since the name of the series is The Chosen One. So the producers very smartly never mention his last name. Or if they did, I definitely don't recall it. And if I had heard that, I would have remembered it. Because, as I said, it's not very subtle. The story begins with Sarah, Jody's mother, a name which also has biblical connotations, being pulled over by the police. And when she does, it appears that a Jedi mind trick happens.
How long have you had these droids?
About 3 or 4 seasons.
They're up for sale if you want them.
Let me see your identification.
You don't need to see his identification.
We don't need to see his identification.
These aren't the droids you're looking for.
These aren't the droids we're looking for.
He can go about his business.
Go about your business.
Move along.
Move along.
Well, that happens in The Chosen One. But it almost appears as if the baby, Jody is a baby at the time that this happens, is the one doing it, which is interesting because it implies all sorts of things, as does the sky of the place they're leaving, which is seething with clouds and dark, and there's lightning. The story very well establishes that Jody is an unusual child, and that's very well done. It never tells you how, necessarily, though you pretty much clue in pretty quickly as the story progresses. There are always hints and portents about this young person. What's also pretty important and very cleverly done is that Jody is established as a gringo, which in the later episodes, there are only 6, is a really important thing. Though what bothers me about that is that Jody is remarkably fluent in Spanish. Something I wouldn't quite expect from a gringo child. So is his mother, for that matter. But the story never tells us how this is the case. I accepted it, but it always kind of bothered me at the back of my mind. The story establishes that they've been on the run quite often, but it still doesn't explain why they can speak Spanish as fluently as a native Spanish person. Well, the actors are Spanish as far as I'm aware, but in terms of the story, it doesn't really make sense. Another thing is that the cast is primarily composed of young people, Jody and his friends. And I'm one of those people who tend to not like child actors because too often they're acting as opposed to being something or another. That's not really the case with The Chosen One. The young actors involved never get to the point of being grating. They're actually very watchable and, more importantly, very naturalistic. And the story that they're telling is somewhat complex, and they acquit themselves really well, which once again, for young actors, is kind of unusual. One of the strengths and paradoxically weaknesses of The Chosen One is that it's the story of Jody and how he comes to understand who he is and the role he plays and his importance. Because, as I said, there's only 6 episodes. So therefore, there's not a lot of oxygen for anything else, which is a problem because there are people chasing after Sarah and Jody. And you never know till literally the last episode why it's happening who these people are. And I should mention, even in the last episode, it's not quite clear till the very end. It's something that needed to be built upon. Tenoch Huerta, who played Namor in Black Panther Wakanda Forever, is Lemuel, who is one of those shadowy people I was referring to a few seconds ago. He seems to be hunting for people with abilities that Jodie has been demonstrated to have, but he hasn't met with success, though he feels Jodie's case will be different. This is the problem I'm referring to, though. The narrative does not tell you why he's doing what he's doing, only that he is doing it. You don't know who's backing him, you don't know his motivation, you don't know anything about this character. And this is where the series needed room to breathe. I would have not ended it the way it ended in episode 6. And I would have made a second season, because it feels to me like everything is tied up neatly in a bow. But as a result, there are whole plot lines that are lost. There's nothing wrong in the first series with the initial emphasis on Jodie. That's perfectly fine. The thing of it is, though, you have to tell us who the opposition is. You have to tell us who his allies are. The series does not do any of that to a sufficient degree. And that makes it really frustrating when it doesn't have to be, because it's well acted, it's well shot, it works really well, but it's never given the space to expand its ideas, its theories, and so on and so forth. Have you seen The Final Conflict? The 1981 movie, which is the sequel to The Omen and Damien, The Omen 2? That's this movie, The Final Conflict in particular. And it's a shocking ending. For me, I was like, whoa, I was kind of blown away by it. But it didn't earn that ending. It glossed over entire sections of narrative to reach this point. Now the thing is, this is a series, as I said, and it's not a limited series. So is it possible that the part of the 6th episode I'm referring to, interesting that it ends in 6, by the way. In any case, the part of the narrative I'm referring to, could that have been a prophecy of the future? That's hard to say, because it's so condensed that it feels like a dream or a hint of the future. It doesn't feel necessarily like events are unfolding in the fashion that it shows. But at the same time, I haven't heard about a second season of The Chosen One. So it's entirely possible this is it. And if that's the case, it is really unsatisfying. Everardo Gout is a very good director. He's a very emotional director. And you can see it in the images on screen. It is a beautiful movie, and it's a very magical movie. I don't mean in the sense of literal magic. It's more magical in the sense of a very naturalistic feel. That being said, The Chosen One at 6 episodes is really watchable. It's well acted. It's enjoyable. Though, like me, I suspect if you sit through the first 6, you're going to want more. If only because so much is left untold and unaddressed that another season would be perfect for bringing it all together. So what do you think? This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com and Review. Do you agree, disagree? Let me know down below. And as usual, consider a like or a follow. Peace.